booster ignition, and liftoff, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. Latb, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Back? Welcome back, fans. 101. Somebody get that freaking baby out of here. Hope you're liking the new digs, the new intro. Again, with the change that we have going on here at Latb, it's ever evolving. If you're along for the ride, enjoy it because it's only going to keep getting better. How have you been, Lesbo?
You got to talk into the mic.
More so into the mic.
One finger.
Learning it. I definitely moving around in these chairs. And with the new studios, still getting used to it. You can see them knees. You can see them knees, too.
Lucky you guys. Are those called the bean's knees?
Those are the bean's knees.
Some say that's better than the bee's knees.
Good to
Yay!
go.
It's fight week, everyone!
It has been a UFC drought. Hanging on by a thread. I need that sweet, sweet nectar, that sweet violence. MMA's going to bring it to us out of Brazil because if we ever see crazy things happen, it's out of Brazil. And
everything.
Brazil. We have legends on this card. We have upstarts. We have squash matches. We have close bouts. It is actually a great pay-per-view. Going to be headlined by Mata Leon herself first, Raquel Rocky Pennington. Fun main event, even though it's a ladies' main event.
Into it?
Definitely.
Before we get there.
Right.
Before we get all the way into it. First things first.
Please.
Lesbo and the Bean has to give a shout out to Project Spearhead.
Oh, agreed.
Which is the organization, we should say, over the word union, if everything's about wording. If everything's about the proper wording. It is an organization for the fighters because, and not to sound corny, but in the words of Jack Johnson, it's always better when we're together. There's strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers, really, is all I'm saying. And that would work out for the fighter. You know how we feel about it. Leslie Smith is saying and doing all the right things and really the only one out there. You know, we've heard other things go amok with other attempts. So, and I think she has her heart in the right place. She's not looking for who was the guy from Bellator before that was trying to get involved?
Jordan Rebney?
Yeah, and everyone was like, what the is this guy doing? Show. So, anyways, I don't even need to talk about it anymore. You could probably go to Project Spearhead, follow Leslie Smith on Twitter, and you can learn more about it. And there is, I think, a Patreon or a GoFundMe or something for it because they are going to need help. They're going up against, one of the biggest organizations.
If you're a fighter and you are looking to get into this business, you know how Latb here is always on the fighter side, and this is a cause that is for the fighter. This isn't to prohibit fighters. This is so... Did you hear that Emmett, coming off of that Orlando show versus Jeremy Stevens, that so-called illegal knee, but either way, decisive finish for Jeremy Stevens? We haven't heard about Josh Emmett in a while because once he got out of Florida where they did proper testing on him, he had both orbital sockets fractured, like a lineal fracture in his nose, all this crazy stuff, has still concussion issues, and is now being treated, but the doctors that he's seen since then are like, your eye should be falling out of your face right now. How did the doctors not see that in Florida? And I gotta say, that's the Florida healthcare system for you. Just so you know. But either way, what this organization would do...
Is it known to have bad healthcare? I thought Florida had one of the best.
Some of the best.
I thought all the New Englanders came down here to get their gigs done.
I stay away from hospitals. People die there. Why the hell am I going to go to a hospital? So either way, this organization would help people like Josh Emmett because he has to now go through loopholes and get stuff covered through the UFC, which he has to come out of pocket potentially. It's a heartache where that would never, ever be in question. And guess what? Like other unions, if you can't fight or perform because you're injured, you keep getting paid during that time because it's your job.
Yeah.
And that comes with the job. That comes with the territory. So, definitely Project Spearhead. Liking some Leslie Smith out there if you're watching. Hi, girl. Just saying, we love you from the get-go. we know you might be watching from now on, and that's a fun one. I really am a big fan.
Leslie
in general
Smith
of
underdog
Leslie
pick.
Smith.
Well, I think she actually, speaking of Leslie Smith, she had interesting. She had posted something earlier, and who knows how many things she friggin' posts. Okay, I thought this was so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, the new contract with ESPN Plus and all that going on.
Please get into that. So how?
It's a good segue for it.
Sure.
So it's just a way for people to kind of put things in perspective a little bit. And everyone's got to make money here, people. But come on, just let's hear me out. $150 million per year. 15 cards, $10 million per card. Fights per card, mandatory 12. At least 12 fights per card. Total fights 180 for the entire year. That's $833,333 per fight. Fighters per card 24. Total fighters for the whole year, just with this contract, 360. They technically are paying $416,666 a fighter. How much do you think the fighters are seeing for each of those fights?
416,000 is what it breaks down to?
Yeah.
If they were to break it evenly right now without adding anybody
Right,
else.
with all that card. With all that card, just with what ESPN's deal
Right.
is.
Oh, right.
That's
This is
just
another
ESPN's
sponsors.
deal.
Right.
That's
Right.
just the fights they're getting. They're paying, on average, $416,666 or $67 per fighter. And how much do you think? I mean, the lowest fighter probably gets 8 and 8.
Yeah, and there might be even under. There might be less than that.
So 16.
It's crazy.
So there's probably a few fighters on the card that both of us can say, and this is not including what they have to
I think
pay
it's
their
like 4 and
camps.
4 is what they started.
They're making $400,000 off some of those fighters.
Totally.
Just for
If
fans
you go
that
2 and
aren't
out.
into supporting your local MMA fighter.
Right.
Just
And
for anyone who wants to have something to say
That's
about
just
it.
that doesn't, again, I see what you're saying now. That doesn't include all of the other royalties, and that's something that
Oh, yeah. Getting naughty.
getting extra naughty. One of the things
Lecra.
that Leslie Smith also really talks about on this is whether the fighters are contracted, specially contracted, or if they are employees. Because that does change all the legalities, and it's stuff that the UFC has relied on to nobody bring up so that they can keep exploiting the fighters as much as they can. It's business, and this is America.
Yeah, I know. It's just a sad thing. I feel like in a weird way, the MMA fighters are the Handmaid's Tale.
Getting fucked around every
Yeah,
corner.
they have to get pierced. They get pierced, but instead of getting pierced, they're like, here, carry this belt.
They do it in prison too, right? Grab my pocket. Hold the inside of my pocket.
Yeah, like,
So, and there's so much other money coming in. There's books. Even Sean Shelby. Oh, there's just so many. Is this the death of Fight Pass?
No, not at all.
It's
It's 15 fights. How many fights are there a year?
52 now or 48 or something?
It's 15.
56.
It's 15 of those
Yeah.
fights. That's it. So the rest, if anything, I think Fight Pass gets bigger. It doesn't go to FS1. It doesn't go to Fox. It goes to ESPN or what? So I think, if anything, more fights go to Fight Pass. So you end up with...
So, right, they might get like 6 bouts now instead of just the 2 or 3. Good point. There might be some benefits.
They probably won't get the early prelims anymore for the fight cards that are on ESPN, but they will get a lot more full cards.
Right.
Like a lot more. They'll probably have 30 cards that are their own. And if the UFC's looking to make the money, are they all going to step up the promotion all of a sudden on some of these fighters?
Oh,
because
for sure.
they only...
Van Zandt. Cody Garbrandt's coming out with a book. All these guys are coming out.
I think that
like,
book done came and went.
PVZ's on the bestseller or some garbage like that. You know UFC has a warehouse full of PVZ books. You know UFC.
If you haven't, I would suggest, even if you are a hater of Brennan Schaub, because people tend to hate successful people. Even if you're a Brennan Schaub hater, go listen to that show with Leslie Smith on it. It made me crush on her in a different way than I normally.
How do you like the blonde hair?
Yes, I liked it more. Maybe that's why. I didn't even think about it.
I was mixed about that. I don't know if I've seen her with blonde hair ever, and
I think I liked it more. I think
it was very Khaleesi-esque, but that's I
have to be on. I knew she was going to be on the show, and then the show was on, and I was doing some chores and listening, and when I walked into my living room, I thought it was friggin'
Targaryen?
No, Felice Herring. I thought it was Felice Herring talking to Brennan Schaub. Even her voice a little for a second. And then I was like, oh, shit, that's Leslie Smith. And anyway. So don't send money to Lesbo and the Bean right now. Send it to Project Spearhead.
Totally. But you can send us a like, a follow, subscribe, hit that little bell whenever you can.
You know what? We don't even have to say that anymore.
Dun, dun, dun.
We have a new ending.
Oh, that's a good point. We're getting there.
We got to talk into mics.
We do.
We have a new beginning. We have a new ending. We have a new studio. New chairs.
Life is good.
A new table.
Life is good. Got a new drink.
And it's UFC 224.
224. Not only that, we have fights coming down the pipeline. 225 is fucking stacked. We got fight cards in between that we can talk about. All this other news. Again, we are in the thick of it, but beating around the bush too much. You know how I like to do that. We need to get to this.
Wait, I always like to guess when you're beating around the bush. Are you going to talk about Mackenzie Dern?
There was a lot of beating for that one. A lot. But before that, we got to start from the bottom to the top. 4 days of breakdown. UFC 224 coming out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We got the Brazilian judges.
I have to bring up one more thing.
Please, go ahead.
This is worth it.
All right.
Because I don't know if we talked about it or not. Did we talk about Conor's Bia?
Oh, Hogwatch? Yeah. We got to break in for Hogwatch real quick.
Yes.
This was a featured note added social event at a dinner. This is dinner talk apparently for some MMA fanatics with their loved ones. And Hogwatch, full effect. On the treasure coast.
We broke out a picture and showed his girl and my wife picture of Conor, and both of them.
Conor and his baby.
Yeah, Conor Jr. and little Conor.
Exactly.
He totally wasn't wearing underwear.
Good for him.
But why would you wear white pants to your family event?
I don't understand fashion. I don't know.
You never had that uncle that you're like, that bent over in the shorts that were like silkies, and you're like, whoa, I just saw Uncle Theo's.
I feel like I've had to make that mistake a few times where you learned like, oh, underwear do a lot more than just keep the stink out.
Yeah, I'm all for it, but I'm like, hey, it's a family event. Like, I'm all for a good hogwash.
Looked like the whole family was there. Like everyone was.
I know who's going to say anything to the guy who's paying for everything in every bit one's life. They're like, oh, Conor's there with his dick out.
Yep, that's what paid for all of this.
You could see his full circumcision.
Good for him. Brutal mutilation on the human body.
I know, I feel like, and maybe it's racist, but a white guy with a big dick gets no love. It's rare. Everybody always says, if he was a brother...
If he was Prince.
I think everyone would feel more comfortable talking about it.
Some people might. I don't know if I would. Yeah, but we did. I had those conversations. It was like, yeah, that was Hogwatch.
Hoggozo.
Yep, you better be careful and wash your eyes after that one because no underwear. You know what that brings along. Good amount of pink eye.
Do you think he picks out his pants with that in mind? Or do you think he actually has all his pants tailored?
So the real question is, do you think he chubbed before the photo?
No. I think he has his pants tailored.
Yo, guaranteed.
And so you can get the actual crotch of your pants done further up your inner thigh so it bunches up your shit more. Do you think he has his pants tailored to make his shit look big instead of... Most people would have their pants tailored flat, so no one's paying attention to their dick. Do you think Conor gets his maybe done a little different? Or do you think there's nothing he can do?
I think that he, tailoring or not, if you're not wearing underwear with anything tight fitting, you're going to be able. I wore singlets before. You can see guys that are. You can see what guy. I don't know underwear people are wearing. So I don't think he had it in mind. I think it just happened, and he probably made a bunch of money off of that dick pic, and he didn't have to take his clothes off. And he has before already. Sports Illustrated, mind you.
Oh, yeah, you don't mind. Well, this is goes to another theory.
Oh, okay.
The only guys who will show their dick got a big dick.
Yeah,
Do you have a friend that has, like, a tiny little dick and always likes to show anyone? Or is it the guy that it's like, damn! You know what I mean?
Yep. That's a good point.
All right.
That is the truth.
Speaking of, let's move on to Baby Albini.
But before Baby Albini, we always got to be careful with the Brazilian judges. We know that as many of the fighters are on the juice, that the judges are also drinking those acai bowls beforehand and getting a little twizzled before it.
I gotta go to Brazil and get this acai bowl because I have them all the time and I love them.
Apparently they're like 50 million times better in Brazil.
I don't know if they are because
somebody... That's what I've heard.
Because somebody on the just this last, I don't know, they didn't say a difference though, but they seemed really disappointed and they were like, oh, this isn't like the one I get back at home.
Everybody says that when they come to America. So
No. They were in Brazil eating their acai bowl.
Oh,
they were American.
Interesting. Well, it's probably just because they grew up differently and it's a different taste all the way around. Like, I'm sure they don't have chicken the same way we have chicken and beef out here. It's just, we have, the food in the grocery stores tailors to the culture as well. So, it just makes sense.
But isn't it just like berries? Isn't it just typically the same thing?
Yeah. But maybe the sugar is from, like, real sugar from their fields instead of you got from Kansas or Texas, wherever the hell you're getting it from here and just distributing it across the Americas. Either way, at beach level, you're not going to have to worry about elevation. You're not going to worry about those bugs. Is it the summer or the winter time over there right now? I think it's a good weather on the embeddeds if you've been watching. Good amount of bikinis, short skirts,
Looks
smiles.
No one
fun.
looked cold jumping into the ocean.
But no one looked brutally hot either, right? Nobody's been like,
no one was
I'm dying.
buckets.
So these are factors that, because one of the things that always happens in these arenas that may not have air conditioning is that people are like, it's 105 degrees inside the auditorium. And you see people with them big old fans.
I would bet it feels similar to here right now.
To the Floridas
here,
right
I
now.
mean, Florida.
I would agree with that. So perfect time, taking all those factors out of it. We're going to have 13 bouts ahead of us, starting with Marcus Perez versus James Bokovic. Bokovic's coming in.
Oh, I gotta look at my card.
8-2
I was so busy
record.
admiring the studio just now. I couldn't even pay attention.
You're just gathering it all in.
Yeah, I was like, look at us. Look at how far we've come.
Getting there.
Don't hate. Look at this. Looks ugly. And I keep getting off track. Look how much better it looks now.
That is amazing.
It kind of looks like the tail just comes right to my chair. All right, Bokovic.
Back to Bokovic, 8-2, losing his debut in the UFC to Trevor Giles in a vicious knockout. Bokovic, what's his nickname? What's this mofo's nickname? He doesn't have one, so he goes by James. James ended up coming up from the Illinois scene. Traditionally, as a kickboxer, has some kickboxing credentials, really showed his kickboxing in his first fight versus Trevor Giles, but showed that actually against the takedown and on the ground, he is a fish out of water. He resisted a bit, but once Bokovic started gassing, it was all downhill, and he was knocked out on the ground, TKO, ground and pound, where he was out for a few minutes, and the announcers were even like, Trevor Giles is incredibly powerful, and not too many guys get knocked out that hard on the ground. Was that Trevor Giles, or was it Bokovic might also have a little chinny problems as well? Because we do see people get finished, but he was out for a long time. Aljamain Sterling, though, just got knocked out that way, and he came back and looked good. So maybe I'm making more out of it. 9 months ago is a good amount of time to rest for me. Either way, we have the Brazilian local. Wait, never mind. I got off track there. It is a Brazilian local from Sao Paulo, though, coming with a 9-1 record, getting his only loss ever in the UFC. That tends to happen to people. He was decisioned by Eric Anders, who has all sorts of hype Eric Anders was just beat by Lyoto
Yeah.
Machida, though, as well. So the hype isn't all the way...
Well, no. Eric Anders was beat by Lyoto?
I thought that's who...
I thought Lyoto's like on a all-loss streak.
Eric Anders just lost to somebody in a decision, and I thought it was Lyoto. Could be off
Could
on
be.
that.
Maybe it was in
later.
Brazil, because Lyoto only fights in Brazil lately.
Yeah, good point. The decision 4 months ago was
You're right.
actually a good fight.
Split decision.
Against
Eric
Anders,
Anders,
right?
yeah.
It was a good fight. That was his debut in the UFC, and that's a hard task either way. Anders is getting a little more hype than he deserves right now, but I think for Perez, it's a really good testament that he wasn't outclassed by any means, and he's going to make huge leaps and bounds in this fight. I see him looking a lot better. Even in that Anders fight, I liked his movement. His striking is developed, not as good as Blachowicz or Bonovic's, but definitely on the ground is where he brings out all sorts of submissions and transitions incredibly well to top position. Even off of his back, he's always looking for great openings to get the fight back to the ground. This is a setup fight. They're looking for the Brazilian to start out the win for the night out with a submission win. I got third round submission Perez. I think he cooks him for the first 2 rounds and finally gets submission. Maybe it'll go to round 2, but I do think this is a setup fight. We're going to see a couple more of these throughout the night. Moderate favorite, minus 300 for Perez. I can see the holes. What do you think goes on in this fight?
I think it is over. He should not be such a favorite. This fight I'm going to stay away from because I see that Bojanovic could F up the whole entire thought. I understand what you're saying. First fight of the night, hot for Brazilian. They're a heavy crowd to please, so they give him a Brazilian winner. I also have Perez submission round 3. I don't see him as a finisher, even though he has that one submission that I can see in his recent victory. Most of it's his decisions. The fight with Eric Anders was okay. In my opinion, I agree with you. It was just Eric Anders. I feel okay about him, but he's a guy with more heart than talent. Bojanovic, I don't know anything about him, and
Great kicks to the body. He throws great kicks to the body. The thing is, when he throws kicks, Bakovic, he gets taken down. It happened in his first fight. If he does that in this fight, it's going to happen. Perez.
He has an okay ground game, Bakovic. I'm just going to stay with Perez submission round 3, but I'm also going to stay away from this fight because it's the first fight of the night.
So you're telling me that 9,200 on DraftKings for Perez is a little overpriced for the 7,000 Bakovic?
I would say so.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay Perez for too much on that. Might sprinkle him in on 1 or 2 cards, but they're not going to be the top level things. That is a first fight of the night for Latb. Tends to be one of those stayaways. Going to the welterweight division, though, we have Alberto Mina against Rusam Envy. Envy? Am I pronouncing that right? We're going to have some rough names. Either way, Mina's coming off of a 13-0 record against Envy 16-3. The older fighter is actually Mina 36 to Envy's 30 years old. Mina tends to be the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace, even though he's the type of Brazilian guy that just knocked out Mike Pyle, but you always got to be careful with Pyle's knockouts because his chin has been known to go for a little while. But he has a few wins in the UFC already, also against TKO over Azani, a Japanese fighter who's very underrated, and Akiyama split decision. The grind was really a factor in that fight. Mina is coming off of a 1 year, 9-month layoff. I don't know if that was due to injury or if it was because he popped for drugs. I'm assuming it's an injury. Against Envy, who's just coming off of a win against Sam Alvey decision 6 months ago. It was really one of the worst fights of ever. Do you remember how horrible of a fight that was? And that's boring. Because neither of these guys pulled the trigger. Envy tends to be a counter striker, sambo stylist, has leg locks and stuff, doesn't use his ground game all that much, but is capable there. He has okay takedown defense, garbage takedowns, but really uses his takedown entries, the sprawl and brawl. And in the dirty boxing, I would give this fight to Envy. He tends to be the more kickboxing stylistic guy. Alberto Mina, though, to me, the ground game is where he really is going to exploit a lot of people. It's whether he can get it there or not. And the interesting for Mina, for me, is that he's willing to do kind of this Ortiz thing, or what these other jiu-jitsu guys are doing, where he's jumping in with flying knees. He's throwing very looping or shots that are going to get him out of position and make him fall, because he doesn't care. If he gets you on the ground, he's going to be able to submit you. So I think that Mina's very dangerous in any one of his fights, because he's going to be willing to throw some of those flash techniques, and all of a sudden you're going to see someone night-night or submitted. I got Mina as an underdog here. I know I'm going against the grain here. I think there's just more avenues. I think the home cooking is going to play a favor. Both of these boys are going to probably be juiced up. The year layoff does scare me a bit more for Mina, and I see why people are picking Envy, being the younger fighter, more fighting recently, and I think he's going to be backing up the whole time. This is actually going to go a dirty-ass, disgusting split. Dirty split. But I'm going Mina with the underdog. What do you think goes on here?
Wow. It's weird to me that Mina's such an underdog for especially because he's out of Brazil. It's sketchy to me how long it's been since he's fought last, in which I do agree with you on the juice, because what's going to make him fight again in 2 more years except to just come out and fill out a card because it's hometown.
In Brazil, yeah.
It's so sketchy to me. The UFC's Brazilian roster, it's just crazy we are like, where are all the Orlando guys when we're in Orlando? Where are all the New Yorkers when you're in New York? But there's never a question where the Brazilians are when you're in Brazil. Just saying, UFC.
It's a good point.
The number one thing I like about Maeve going into this fight is the fact that he fought at 185 pounds last fight. And I think it was on short notice. I could be crazy, but I feel like it was a short notice fight. So coming down to 170, I'm interested in to see him at this. I think he's going to have more power in the welterweight division, which could be dangerous for Mina. I don't know if he's ever been hit by any of these guys. Like Mike Pyle's not a guy known for crazy heavy power. I also am not crazy worried about Mev's defense to submissions. He has an okay ground game himself, and I think he's super strong. He reminds me of Stipe a little bit. I think he has a good takedown defense, and like you were saying, the boxing. And maybe it's his build. He has a Stipe type build where it's not like really cut up. It just looks like that.
It was at 185, which is a good point.
Yeah.
That's 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, that'll shred you out.
So I have Emeev KO round 3. I just think he's going to overwhelm Mina, and I could even change it to submission. I understand what you're saying with the dirty split here, and it actually, if it goes to decision, then I think Mina wins.
Right?
Because we're in Brazil, and I think it will be close enough that, come on, we're in Brazil.
Dirty ass fight, and they're going to be like, oh, he was off of his back, but they'll actually potentially give some of these back guys, a Brazilian fighter, just the advantage. It tends to happen.
Can I say something else that I think I'm realizing? You guys, you've grown with us for 101 episodes, so you can hear this. I think I might want this on the other side to open up my conversation with you. I was thinking that I feel like this is in the way.
I was agreeing with that. Do we need to do that
on air right now? So if you guys heard some clanking, it's because, no, I think I can wait till after the show. But yeah, we were talking about our microphones, if you see the way they're set up, and we thought they'd be good on this side, but I want to be able to reach things here.
I agree. I keep trying to grab
especially once we have our earphones on, we're going to want to turn up and down our own levels. So anyway, yeah, you guys, it's like if we were little kids before. I feel so grown up. Turn down our levels. Okay.
Dare we ask the fans for some suggestions? Is there something that they're like, oh, you guys should be doing this? It would totally make your whole situation better. Or do we want to say, screw you fans, we're doing what we want. I do what I want. Don't tell me nothing.
I make money moves.
So on to the money moves. We're going back up to the 185 division. With Thales Leites versus Jack Hermanson. Thales Leites, longtime UFC veteran. Coming up of his last 5, winning 1, losing 1 for the last 5 in a row. 27-8. Thales Leites has only really lost to top-level competition against Hermanson with 16-4 record. The Swedish fighter is younger by 7 years at 29 years old, and he definitely comes in with that kickboxing, standing, striking. Swedish strikers aren't bad. I feel like they tend to mimic a lot of that Dutch fighting. Well, is Swedish or Dutch, right? So that makes sense. So you got that Dutch kickboxing style. We did see Hermansson come off of his loss in the UFC to Thiago Santos 6 months ago via TKO.
Are Swedish, the Dutch?
Yeah.
The Swedes are the Dutch?
I believe so.
Is it one of their spoken languages? Don't they have like 4?
What's Dutch Bros?
Coffee?
But they also do like the windmill because it's Swedish, or am I making this up?
I know, because a whole part of the world.
Yeah.
We have listeners in every part of the world, so I
we
feel
do.
like
So we're gonna all of a sudden get Hermansson's family listening because be listening to all that good stuff. Either way, with Hermansson, he has won a couple times in the UFC, knocking people out, but his loss to Cesar Fiera's submission over a year, 5 months ago, and his last loss TKO means that there is holes that people are exploiting, and Hermansson needs to maybe start training in other parts of the world.
Okay, you ready?
Please, fill me in. I've been dying.
The Dutch are the people who live in the Netherlands, or those that come from the Netherlands. Often the Netherlands is called Holland, but this is only part of the Netherlands.
And Sweden's not a part of any of that?
I don't know. But I do think Dutch is one of their official languages, but I might be wrong.
I could be.
Hollandic, West Eastland, Limburgish. Yeah, so no, I don't think Sweden, but it might be.
He's out of Norway, so there we go. Norwegian, boom. Could have fixed that. We could have missed all that.
I know, but I wanted to make sure too.
Sure.
Okay.
The Norwegian.
Because I looked over and it said the other guy was Brazilian fighting out of a certain part of Brazil, and I'm like, oh, that some of the fighters are African fighting out of Texas. So I just wanted to look.
This is the truth. So Hermansson, we know what we're getting. Okay, take down the fence on the ground, serviceable. Not going to be Leites anywhere. Standing is where he's going to have to win this fight. And Thales Leites has been serviceable, even though he has not looked any better as of late. He hasn't really declined. The decision loss to Tavares 6 months ago wasn't the worst ever. The decision over Sam Alvey is meh. Lost to Jutko decision, meh as well. Beating Kamosi, everybody saw coming. And then losing to Masasi decision, I'd say is the most telling because everyone thought Leites was going to get ran through, and he managed to squeak out a decision. Leites is fighting to the potential of fighters now, and I think it's more performance-based in his older years with his long career. But if anything, these guys are juiced to the tits. They're in Brazil. Leites being the local fighter, he's probably had a cycle or two through him. I want to give this to Hermansson. I think Hermansson can win the standing events, keep it off of the ground because Leites doesn't have the best entries. But if you do get your back to the fence, Leites has really good takedowns off of the fence, which a lot of jiu-jitsu guys don't. So if it goes to the ground, I'm giving it to Leites. If it stays standing, I think it's a boring Brad Tavares stylistic decision. I'm going to go with, I had Leites. I'm going with Hermansson. I might go back to Leites by the end of this. This is a flip-floppy, splitty decision just because of the localness. I'm going to go Hermansson decision right now. Don't hold me to that. Be careful on your cards. How do you feel this goes down?
Whew. Okay. In my opinion, when you put a guy that is going to give Leites forward pressure, Leites falls apart, even to the point that a Brazilian dirty bunch of judges couldn't give him a fight. So when you look at the guys he loses to, Brad Tavares, Jutko, Musasi, they're all guys that have tons of forward pressure. I think Hermansson does too. He reminds me, this is the weirdest comparison, and nowhere near the footwork, just the actual way he looks. If TJ Dillashaw were a big man.
Body type?
Just his whole thing. Like his whole, even his, like, he's TJ Dillashaw's dad. And he doesn't have a dad bod by any means. So I think Hermansson has tons of forward pressure. I think he has more power than Brad Tavares and Jutko. I think he has more technique than Jutko, but not Brad Tavares. I think all that being said, Leites usually has a really good chin. So I do think it's going to go to decision, but I do think Hermansson's going to do enough to make sure that the judges can't just outright give it to Leites. So Hermansson, decision, and I think he'll get enough points in that too because he's going to be throwing heavy.
So Hermansson is the 8,300, also the slight favorite at minus 150 over Thales Leites, 7,900 or plus 120 for Leites. I could potentially see a play on Latb here just because of that local, and he's the underdog. But I think the odds are perfect in this. I think they balanced out. They've been out for a while, and it makes a lot of sense to me of why it's there. Quickly, though, back to the previous fight. We didn't go over the prices for Rassam MV versus Alberto Mina. 8,700 for MV against 7,500 for Mina. I'm liking Mina there as the underdog. I'm going to be putting him on a few cards. Not everything, because that is an underdog. But how do you feel about MV at 8,700?
MV. I think it's all right. I might have him on a few. I could see a play either way. This is interestingly enough. I think like the latest Hermanson fight, you could play either guy and it not F your cards if they lose.
Right. I would agree with that. I could totally see that.
Which is sometimes how I play. I'm like, okay, I just need a guy that doesn't shit the bed so I can afford all these other guys.
Anything left with these guys? These specific guys. On to the welterweight division, we have Warlley Alves, Brazilian Warlley Alves, against Zoltan Aliev. Aliev is 33 years old, been plagued by injuries and visa issues, hasn't fought in over a year in the UFC, beating Johan Serbian Steel Blachowicz in a split decision. But prior to that, losing to Kenny Roberts in a TKO over 3 years ago now. Aliev is definitely a Sambo practitioner coming out of Russia. He's might not be 30 years old. All of these Russian fighters are 33 years old. We always know. Same with MV. He actually might be 45. So just something to worry about. But Warlley Alves at 11-2 against the Aliev's 14-2. Both of these guys are still prospects in the division. I still think they have quite a few fights left. We know what we're getting with Alves coming off of the show, the Latin America show, getting a few wins together, having 2 losing fights against Brian Barberena and Kamaru Usman, which Barberena looks a little iffy, but that Usman grind, you can see where the decision wasn't horrible there. And then he last beat a decision, Tokahari. We really see Alves using his jiu-jitsu and wrestling actually a lot. He has a overhand right that he really likes to follow behind with a double leg takedown, Alves does. And he gets you to the fence and gets you to the ground. He's really backed off of his striking and started to start decision people on the ground. Aliev is not an easy takedown though. That Sambo style is a bit tricky, but I do think, again, I see this being a setup fight because Aliev has okay takedown defense, but it's not amazing. And I'm going to go with Alves, submission round 2, maybe 3. I just think that he has more checks in his spots. The power, even though he doesn't have better striking than Aliev, the power's there for Alves as well to get him to react to where he wants them to go. Alves, submission round 3. Where are you going with this one?
Aliev's kind of a guy that's never shown up yet. Keep waiting for him to be there. It looks like everything is right where it should be, but it just never really happens. Whereas Warlley Alves is a guy that shows up in spades and he just keeps fighting monsters that you don't know they're monsters until they beat Warlley Alves. Yeah. So his loss to Usman isn't a big deal to me where I can kind of wash that away. And even though everybody else doubts him a little bit, we love Brian Barberena here. So losing to Brian Barberena isn't a big deal to me either. I think Warlley kind of outclasses Sultan everywhere. And so it's just a matter of time. I think instead of putting himself in any harm's way, he waits till round 2 to get the submission. Otherwise, I can see it actually happening at the end of round 1. Warlley Alves for the win.
Alves 8,800 on DraftKings against the 7,400 for Aliev. How much are you going to put Alves on your... I don't think he's at 100%. This isn't a guarantee by any means, but I think at the minus 225 favorite for Alves, it's likely going to go to Alves. How...
I think 75% of my cards
3 out of 4
get a little Warlley love. And I usually am not that heavy on Warlley Alves, but he's had... Usman is a guy I never bet against, and then...
decision with Usman.
Yeah, and then right before Usman, he fought someone. I think I just said it, but I guess I can scroll back down and look. Oh, Brian Barberena.
Right.
Brian Barberena has underrated wrestling all day.
As we keep highlighting throughout the middleweight night, we have another 170-pound bout at Zaleski versus Sean Strickland. This is a fight of the night contender for me. I think that this is the fight that I'm most excited for. I'd say the entire night. I'm a big Sean Strickland dick rider. You know me. I'm gonna call it like I sees him. I've been following Strickland for a long time. The only thing I don't like about him is that weak ass nickname Tarzan, even though he would murder me. Needs to change it to propane. It makes so much more sense. But Zaleski, he's a guy who's coming off of a 4-fight winning streak, had a few fights in the UFC. His only loss in the UFC is a split decision to Dalby, but his last 4 have been to a few Russians, Ninamaki, Liam Good in a split decision, then as of late, Max Griffin in a decision. Zaleski has tons of power. One thing I always am going to remember with Liam Good is in the corner. Liam Good in the second round was like, or maybe going into the third round, they're like, why are you not letting go? This guy doesn't have anything on you. Just unleash. And he, Good was like, I don't want to get knocked out in there. Which meant Zaleski hits fucking hard. And you can see that he hits hard. People definitely react to his strikes. He loads them up, throws them straight down like a piston down the middle. Good gas tank for Zaleski. Good ground game. Hard to take down. And is just not a fun fight. You don't see anybody calling out Zaleski. Anybody. And you don't see anybody calling out Sean Strickland. I can say these exact same things about Sean Strickland. He hurts people. His striking, to me, isn't as chambered. To me, Zaleski looks like he's a bolt-action rifle and throws a fucking piston down the middle, where Tarzan is a little bit more looping, but he still has power because when he hits people, you see them react like they do to Zaleski, but it's not as traditional of a striker as I would say.
Maybe not
Zaleski
looping.
is.
I think he's like, he has just a little more style, a little more updated style, and Zaleski looks a little more traditional, that hard-shouldered,
Yes.
like boxing style.
Yes. On the ground, Strickland is a monster.
Could we coin, there's an MMA boxing style that's emerging.
Sure.
That some guys are the best MMA boxers. So I think like Strickland is a better MMA boxer just because he does tend to keep his hands a little lower because he is preparing for a takedown too. He has that whole style where Zaleski does look that almost like that traditional boxing drawing.
Totally.
Even his build.
So this fight, I actually think is going to turn into a grind session because Sean Strickland uses the body lock really well along the cage. Really has good dirty boxing, clinch work. On the ground, he does submit people, but it's not his true form. That's not what he always relies on. But he will positionally just stay on top of you the whole time and win a decision. This, again, I could see fight of the night. On the embeddeds, if you don't see Kevin Gastelum being profiled on there, you got to be seeing my boy Tarzan Strickland being his number 1 training partner. So you know that he has top-level competition training with him at 185 pounds. Kelvin Gastelum gives it another check for me. This is a coin flip. This is a coin flip of a fight for me. I am going to be dick riding decision Strickland, but I can easily see this going split decision Zaleski. This is a
They can't even be close in Brazil.
I know. The minus 135 Zaleski is the favorite. I'm going with an underdog here in Strickland. I think Strickland pulls it out. This is a grind, though. This is going to be a dirty split either way. How do you feel it ends up finishing by the end of the
It's
night?
pretty crazy. I don't know if I'm dick riding Strickland. I don't know if I always just like him, except for his Usman fight. I want to even look up.
A decision to Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my goodness. And that was one of the few fights that Strickland's actually been taken down regularly for me, was that Usman fight. Strickland's usually been able to get back up and really fort a lot of that ground attack and use it to impose, but
I always go with Sean Strickland, except for the one time I went with Kamaru Usman. So I always get this right, and I'm going to get it right again. I have faith in Sean Strickland to pull this out. Zaleski is a guy that's just losing the step that Sean Strickland is taking. Otherwise, they are on the fence everywhere. And that hair, I'm going to give to age advantage. And that will go to the 27-year-old Sean Strickland. I like everything about him. He is an exciting guy to watch in the octagon. I see what you're saying is true because they both can stand up and bang. And both guys will respect the banging ability of the other, that it could get into a grinding session. And both guys can grind. So
That's why this is, for me, fight of the night written all over it. And there's a few contenders in this fight of the night potential, which makes this pay-per-view so worth it. Anything left with these two? I feel like we got our Leslie Smith right around the corner. Not even around the corner. I feel like I could already be hook, line, and sinker, but there's a few other unders. For DraftKings, we have 8,100 for Zaleski Dos Santos against the 8,100 for Strickland. DraftKings has it exactly down the middle.
Know.
As we know.
DraftKings, you know something?
Gonna be itching. This is one of those, though, that I'm gonna even it out. I'm gonna put either fighter on either card. Even though I like Strickland a bit more. Okay, 60-40. 60-40 Strickland. But I'll put either fighter. On to the 155-pound division, we have Davey Ramos versus Nick Hein. We've been talking about this a little bit in other fights, but the 7-2 Ramos has only had 2 losses in the UFC, or 1 in the Bellator, 1 in the UFC, to Sergio Moraes' decision, but coming off of a win to Grutzmacher's submission 4 months ago, which Grutzmacher did beat Lozon, so MMA math means that Ramos should be the next title contender at 155 pounds. Against Nick Hein, the German 14-2 fighter, getting one of those losses as well against James Vick, unanimous decision 3 years ago. But last winning 3 in a row, last beating Tai Hyun Bang in a decision. Nick Hein tends to be a decision fighter. He likes to stay on the outside, very Sean Turkus-esque to me without as good a dirty boxing. He steps in well, has good takedowns, transitions. Once Nick Hein gets on top, I do believe he's a judoka and throws really well as well. But once he gets on top, he really settles, and I think more stays in that position instead of look for the finishes, and he's more than willing to ride out a decision. Davey Ramos, though. Dude looked great in that fight against Grutzmacher, even though it ended up going to submission in the 3rd round. It was a fight of the night potential. I don't know whether I should view that as a good or bad, because Grutzmacher isn't that high level, and he went in like a fight that he was almost knocked out a few times by a guy who has no power. Ended up getting it to the ground and showing where Davey Ramos is elite. Davey Ramos has been a long time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace, and if Nick Hein chooses to go on the ground, Davey Ramos has the type of pendulum and transitions to be able to end out on top. But I see a lot of running away in this. I see Hein getting on his bicycle and running around that octagon for a full 15 minutes. Other than that, Hein is a different type of striker where, again, he rides more. I'm going to go Ramos. Decision, I think this is going to be a boring decision. I got the slight favorite with a -135. Could see Hein sneaking away with this just by landing the takedowns and getting out of there. I'm not going to put this heavy anywhere. Where do you think it goes?
In my opinion, James Vick is just a little better, Heinz just a little better everywhere. His loss to James Vick, and now we see where James Vick is at now. Davey Ramos is kind of just on there because he's from Brazil, in my opinion. I don't think he should be the favorite. I got Hein decision, and I even think he could sneak away with it just because of kind of how little I love Davey Ramos. I don't know if he's UFC caliber guy.
I kind of talked myself out of it a little bit talking about that Grutzmacher fight.
You know what? I think this podcast is getting a little lengthy, and I want to talk about the next fights, even though it will say main card only on the next one. I think because Baby Albini, we talk about him so much, I think we just talk about all those cards and kind of sneak them onto our next episode, which will be released with this episode or like an hour after this episode. If you guys deal with videoing and YouTube and all that jazz and have grown with us, sometimes we just don't want to have any issues. We don't want to have to do it twice. So we'll get this up and...
So you're going with Hein real quick?
Hein decision. I wasn't going to end it. I was just going to let them know, and I was telling you, and then we can end it right after we discuss this. But I was just
Okay, so we're not just going to do a main card. We're going to add a couple preliminaries.
There'll be 2 prelim fights on the main card.
Okay, we're going to split it down
just
the middle.
for time.
On the DraftKings, though, we have Davey Ramos coming in at 8,500 against the 7,700 for Hein. I feel like you're going to be playing Hein in a few of these, but in a decision bout that we kind of both see going that way, are we really going to play him on DraftKings? I don't think they're worth it.
I think Hein throws enough punches, but I don't think Ramos is going to do enough that judges can even give it to him. I just can't even picture Ramos throwing punches.
He throws some nasty leg kicks. He's very looping in his punches. Kind of does that Mike Tyson, like, swivel down up to the up. But it's predictable. And Hein is a good striker. So, I could see everything you're saying with Hein squeaking this out. Any last little squeaks on this one?
No. I think that's it. Yeah. So, this is episode 1 of 2. Just the prelims.
Prelims. That's about the beat.
Thanks for listening to Latb. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.